Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Amy and I'm going to be doing meal prep, breakfast, and hopefully snacks will be ready to go for the next few days.
Today I thought I would do a meal prep. So here are the ingredients for this breakfast prep. I love these egg bites. They're very simple, versatile, so easy to make. And so first I'm starting with cheese. You can use whatever kind of cheese you'd like. I've used cheddar, Gruyere, Parmesan. This is cheddar. Cheddar is my go-to, I would say. I've probably made this recipe like a dozen times. Today I'm adding chives as well.
You can add whatever you'd like to this. Sometimes I just like to keep it basic and just add cheese and the rest of the ingredients. Today I'm doing chives. You could add whatever kind of veggies you want. Sometimes I just like to add the cheese and nothing else. Today I'm doing some chives, but I find if I don't add too much, like too many veggies, then my kids are more likely to eat it. But however you'd like to do it, it's good. I'm adding 8 eggs, but the reason I love this recipe is the recipe doesn't taste like too eggy. Sometimes if I reheat eggs for a few days, then it starts to kind of have a smell and a taste I don't love. So I really like this recipe because I don't get that, and I think it's because there's flour in it. So this isn't like a Starbucks kind of copycat recipe. It's not that really light, fluffy egg bite. It's pretty dense. So I would say just keep that in mind if you're trying this recipe. I love it. I've made it tons of times. I'm going to add in the cheese right now, and I'm just going to measure out this cottage cheese. I think another key to this recipe is using whole milk cottage cheese. That I think turns out the best. But of course, you know, do whatever you'd like. So I'm going to add 1.5 cups. I'm making a huge mess, but I'm going to add 1.5 cups of cottage cheese. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna clean up a little bit once I get the rest of this in here. And we'll add the seasonings, and then we're gonna add the flour in last. This is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, some garlic powder. I love garlic and eggs together. I think they really complement each other. And some pepper, a 1/2 cup of flour, and that's it. We're gonna give it a stir. And once everything is well combined, I'm gonna add it to a muffin tray. The cottage cheese does not stay like curd-like. It doesn't have the clumps. It just completely melts.
Now it's time to fill the muffin tray. So I like to use a measuring cup. A 1/3 cup fills the cups perfectly. So that's what I'm using here. And I've learned with this recipe, because I made it a ton of times, that you can go ahead and fill it up all the way to the top. It doesn't overflow. They rise a little bit, but they kind of more like a dome, and then they'll flatten out a little bit as they cool.
Now these are ready to be baked in the oven at 350 for, I'll start it at 26 minutes. Your oven might be different than mine, but we'll check it to make sure it's done cooking. So now we're moving on to the second recipe, and that is zucchini muffins. So they're chocolate zucchini muffins. I thought this would be great for after school snacks for my kids. So I like to peel my zucchini. You definitely don't have to. That's just what I prefer to do.
I love those egg bites. I've made them tons of times, but this recipe is brand new, and I'm gonna tell you, I loved it. My whole family really liked them. They're light, fluffy, moist, really delicious.
They're both peeled. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grate them. I'm gonna cut off this little end. I'm gonna save this. I only need 1.5 cups. I'm not going to squeeze out any of the water in this zucchini. I picked these specific recipes because either I really like them or they look quick and easy. And this one looked tasty and it looked really easy, and it has, you know, zucchini in it, which will be nice. And the other 2 recipes I've actually made plenty of times before. So I measured slightly over 1.5 cups, but I'm just gonna add all of it. It's only a couple of tablespoons more. So I probably could have gotten away with just using one, but these were like, I'd say maybe medium, maybe a small medium. Next, I'm gonna add in 1/2 cup of avocado oil. You could use whatever kind of oil you want. Pour that right in. And in that same measuring cup, I'm gonna go ahead and add honey. This is local buckwheat honey. I'm not exactly sure what the benefits are of buckwheat, but she said, the lady at the farmer's market where I bought it a couple of months ago said that it's not quite as sweet as regular honey, has a little bit deeper of a flavor. And one of the reasons I put it in the same measuring cup as the oil, came out pretty clean. You see that? Pretty clean. So I just realized I added in 1/2 cup of honey when I was supposed to add 1/4 cup of honey, and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. So hopefully they turn out okay. Can't really take the honey back out. So that is 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of honey, but the recipe is actually 1/4 cup of honey and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Next, I'm gonna add in some vanilla, 2 eggs, 1 cup of flour, that's 1/2 cup, and 1 cup. 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, which that seems like a lot. Oops. A lot of unsweetened cocoa powder, but that's what we're gonna add. I actually really like to make my own hot chocolate mix just with unsweetened cocoa powder and a tablespoon of maple syrup and milk and a little salt if I feel like it. And it's actually really, really tasty. So that was baking soda. I'm gonna go ahead and add in baking powder. Salt, the recipe just says a pinch of salt. I think I'm gonna add like 3/4 of a teaspoon. Hopefully that's a pretty good amount of salt to add. I think if you undersalt things, it just doesn't have a lot of flavor. So I'm adding in semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm gonna do 3/4 of a cup. I don't wanna dirty anything else, so I'm just using my 1/4 cup that I used for the cocoa powder. That's it. Let's give this a stir. The one thing I am worried about is since I switched the honey and the brown sugar, like the amounts, I'm worried that it might be too wet. But we'll see how it is. So I'm just gonna finish mixing this, and we're gonna have to wait for the muffin tray to be out of the oven. I only have the 1 muffin pan. So once those egg whites come out, I will go ahead and put these in. The egg whites come out really clean, so I won't wash it in between. I don't think it'll taste cheesy or anything. I'll just go ahead and add it right in and bake these. These bake at 350, so the same temperature, for 22 minutes. And then the recipe does say that I can add some of the flaky salt, the Malden sea salt on top if I want. So this is incorporated. I don't want to overmix it. So I'm just going to set this aside. I'm going to go ahead and get cleaned up. I don't have a ton to do, but I will do the dishes and go ahead and put the zucchini away and put the other ingredients away. Let's see how these look. They look good. I'm going to take them out. So they really puffed up, but they do kind of flatten out and settle as they start to cool. But they look great. I tested 10 minutes ago and they weren't quite done. It was about 20 minutes. So these took about 30 minutes. But I just kind of poke at the top and see if it's wet. If it's not wet, it's done. While my egg whites are cooling, I'm going to wait for them to cool for a few minutes before I take them out and put in the chocolate zucchini muffins. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the next recipe, which is date caramel. We love this. My kids love this, especially if you dip apples in it. But I'm going to go ahead, open up these dates, and I'm going to use 16 dates. And I just want to look through them and make sure they're all pitted. We don't want to have any pits in these dates. So I got dates that should already be pitted, but I was gonna soak them. I'm not going to anymore. I'm just gonna go ahead, take them, and plop them in my blender cup over here. Oh, I found a pit. I made the mistake once of not checking for pits, and there was a pit. So we had ground pit in like all of our muffins. I wonder if these actually are not pitted, because 2 out of 3 have pits. I'm gonna check the first one and make sure that one I didn't miss the pit. But so I'm just gonna go ahead, make sure none of these have pits. Oh, it does. I must have forgotten to get the pitted dates. But I'll go ahead and do this. These dates are actually not pitted, and they don't have like the cuts. They're not cut in half, but it's just super easy just to kind of tear it open, take the pit out, plop it in, and that's 16 dates. I'm gonna take a quick break from the date caramel, and I'm gonna go ahead and take out these muffins. They're pretty hot, but I'm hoping I can just take them out. I'm gonna just put them on this cooling rack, because I need to get those muffins in the oven or I won't have time to cook them before I have to go pick up my daughter. All right, here they are. So you can tell they did kind of flatten out. They're not quite as poofy as before. I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside. I'm gonna take the measuring cup that I used for the unsweetened cocoa powder, and I'm just gonna quickly put these in the muffin tray. It's extra batter, so I'm gonna go ahead and just make those once we get back. Change of plans. I miscalculated my time that's left, so I don't have time to bake it. I'll just let it sit there. So let's continue on with the date caramel. This recipe has 4 ingredients. So I have the dates. I'm gonna add salt. This is about 3/4, hopefully, of a teaspoon. The recipe actually calls for 1 teaspoon, but I find it's pretty salty, so I'm just gonna reduce it. Some vanilla extract, and then some almond milk. You could use regular milk if you'd like. I just have some unsweetened vanilla almond milk, and you could use up to a cup or as little as 3/4 of a cup. I'm gonna use 3/4 of a cup, and if it seems too thick, I'll go ahead and thin it out with more almond milk. And that's it. Put the lid on, and we're gonna blend it. It seems like I made a pretty thick batch, but it's not exactly like caramel, but in my opinion, it's tasty. It's really sweet. Yeah, it's great. Let's go ahead and get it in this bowl. Here, maybe you could get a better idea of the texture. So you could see it's thick. This is not like the smoothest batch I've made. So I could have probably soaked the dates and maybe that would have helped, but it does thicken up when you keep it in the fridge, which is where I keep it. Here it is. I almost spilled it, but it's really great. I'll link the recipe below. These muffins turned out good, even with mixing up the amounts of brown sugar and honey. I'll try making it again with the correct ratio of brown sugar and honey and see if there is a difference. But we like all of these recipes. I hope you give them a try. They'll all be listed in the description below. And thank you for watching. I would love it if you check out my channel and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.